Well, good morning, everybody. This is the news we are waking up to for Tuesday, May the 6th, 2025, day 1168 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. How do you do? I'm Peter Alexievich, and let's start with last night's missile and drone attacks. We saw 136 drones come into the country. 54 of them were taken out, shot down. 74 were taken out with active countermeasures, electronic warfare, maybe some of those laser beams. I mean, incredible. And that's a better than 91% interception rate for the Ukrainian mobile defense forces and elements of the Ukrainian armed forces. Well done. Good shooting, boys. And to say boys, I'm sorry, I don't mean to exclude any women involved. Just how they talk in the movies. Now, let's start with the good news for Ukraine. Ukraine pummeled Russia last night with 105 drones, according to the Russian Ministry of Defense. So Ukraine, and of those 105, 19 got to Moscow. The Russians are saying they shot down 19 in Moscow. Ukrainian drones attacked Moscow for the second consecutive night, halting flights at 4 airports in the Russian capital and more than a dozen further afield, as it prepares to host a major military parade expected to be attended by world leaders, including Xi Jinping. Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin said in a Telegram post Tuesday that at least 19 Ukrainian drones were destroyed on their approach to the capital overnight, one night after Russian air defenses shot down 4 drones near the city. Russian MOD claimed to have shot down 105 Ukrainian drones on the territory of the Russian Federation. Now, we know that one of these drones went into an apartment complex in Moscow last night. It's unlikely that that was the target. I think it's, given the Ukrainians' history, I think it's far more likely that electronic warfare set the drone off course and it ended up in the apartment building. There were no reports of casualties. Not that we can expect that from the Russians. You know, it all depends on the days before the parade. The last thing they're going to want in the news is that somebody was unalived by a Ukrainian drone in Moscow. You can be sure. So now, look, we don't know if the Ukrainians are going to attack the parade or not. But this right here, sending drones 2 days in a row to Moscow, certainly sends a message to everybody in Moscow: we can reach you. And I cannot imagine that other world leaders are not seeing this and thinking twice about coming. Now, Xi is supposed to show up tomorrow. If the Ukrainians attack Moscow again tonight, how will that play into Xi's thinking? I don't know the answer to that. We're going to have to wait and see. Now, this is all according to CNN. The latest Ukrainian attack on the Russian capital comes ahead of Xi's expected arrival in Moscow on Wednesday for a 3-day state visit, in which the Chinese leader will take part in Friday's May 9th Victory Day celebrations, according to a Kremlin statement Sunday. Now, we also know that he's there to sign some trade deals and possibly some other kind of mutual support pacts, friendship pacts. The details have not been announced, but there is expected to be a signing ceremony. And so we'll see what gets signed at that ceremony. Brazil's president, Lula da Silva, Vietnam's president, Tulam, and Belarusian leader Lukashenko are among other leaders expected to attend. But Lukashenko's already making noise that he's going to be late. He might miss the parade. He might get there in time for the state dinner that night, but he might miss the parade, is what he's saying in his own office released this statement. So I think things are very much up in the air, and the Russians are concerned, as well they should be. I saw a great interview with Ben Hodges, General Ben Hodges, who is just an amazing guy. And he thinks that there's no legitimate military reason to prevent the Ukrainians from raining hell down on the parade. That's a direct quote. I believe I'm representing General Hodges correctly there. Why? Why should the Ukrainians give the Russians an inch? They are the aggressors. They started this. Why should they be comfortable hosting foreign leadership when the Ukrainians can't do the same? When the Russians have bombed Kyiv, when representatives of the EU Parliament were here, representatives of the EU Commission were here, the Prime Minister of England, Great Britain, was here. The President of Greece was. The list goes on and on. Why should Russia get a break? What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Putin can stop it. He can prevent a Ukrainian attack on Thursday. All he has to do is declare a ceasefire that goes into effect at midnight tonight and give the Ukrainians a 48-hour break before the parade, and at least pay lip service to the idea of a 30-day ceasefire. Give the Ukrainians 4 days to get ready for him to break it on Monday. Now, in terms, what you're looking at here is from a guy called Mark Curfew over on Twitter, who's an open source intelligence guy. And over the last year, he has geolocated Russian air defenses all over Moscow. What you are looking at here is the result of his incredible efforts to document over the course of months where we know air defense positions were. Here's the thing. This is before the Russians moved 280 pieces of radar, air defense, missiles, and anti-drone equipment into Moscow. So you have to add 280 more known locations to this to get a picture of how Moscow is rimmed in air defense today. Now, given all of that, if the Ukrainians manage to get some drones through, holy cow, right? They got awful close last night. I guess the big problem is the electronic warfare jamming. The stuff that's ringing Moscow right now is up to the job of taking out Ukrainian drones. And that is the big, as I understand it, that is the big problem of getting through this defensive ring. Just the fact, though, knowing that electronic warfare is going to hold you up, still sending the drones so that air defense has to be active during the parade is important. And if you saw the video that I did on my understanding of Russian air defense, you know how we're always making fun of what air defense doing, in the defense of the Russians. Their air defense systems, as I understand it, were built to counter American threats. Bombers, jet fighters, helicopters, big planes, intercontinental ballistic missiles. Not drones with a 6-foot wingspan and a radar cross-section of a stork, which is what they're up against, right? So they may be catching on to that, because what we're seeing popping up, both, this is documented and reported on in multiple sources as part of the new air defense ring around Moscow. And these babies are popping up all over the place, defending P-18 radars in Crimea, defending industrial plants in Krasnodar. We saw another one in Donetsk. So these are popping up all over the place. What are these? This is the the ZU-23. It's a 150 millimeter chain gun for near short-range aerial defense. These things are popping up all over the place. And this seems to me, now you can mount this, you see it's got tires on it, right? And so it's mobile, or it can be mounted on a truck rather than towed. And they are popping up all over the place. Here's and they seem to be a better match for the drones. Here's the thing with them. The Russians produced these from 50s, 60s, early 70s. They made 140,000 of them. Now, even though many of those were sold to foreign nations, they've got who knows how many of these in reserve. The fact that they are just popping up really in any great number 3 years into the war says something about the depth and breadth of the Soviet stockpiles that Moscow has inherited, and to the fact that all the other conventional and more modern solutions would appear to be exhausted. And so they're turning to this old choice. So we'll see what happens there. But of course, all eyes are on Moscow for the May Day parade. And in the days leading up to it, it seems very clear that the Ukrainians want Moscow to believe the parade will be attacked. Could that be a diversion? Because we've seen all this air defense now pulled from other places to go to Moscow. Is this a ruse to get Moscow to concentrate its defenses around its perimeter while leaving exposed other juicy targets like manufacturing facilities, oil depots, oil refineries, oil infrastructure, export infrastructure, which, given the crashing price of oil today, I don't see any reason why the Ukrainians shouldn't hit the export infrastructure. Take as much Russian oil off the market as you can. Maybe forestall a global recession. Do the world a favor. And keep the money out of Putin's pocket, right? So all eyes are on Moscow and Ukraine for the next 3-4 days. More good news. This makes me so happy. So following last weekend's drone attack on the Olyena Air Force Base up there in Murmansk, which is well over 1,000 kilometers from the Ukraine border, like something like 800 miles, if I'm not mistaken, 600-800 miles, something like that. Fucking far away, right? A round trip for one of these Tu-95 bombers to unleash cruise missiles on Ukraine is today roughly 2,000 kilometers. Well, after the drones hit Murmansk again last weekend, we have reports that the Tu-95 bombers in Murmansk are being relocated 4,000 kilometers away. Now, to make a bombing run on Ukraine, you need enough aviation fuel in a country that has stopped exporting aviation fuel because it doesn't have enough to go around, even though that's how it makes all its money. You have now taken a 2,000-kilometer round-trip run and made it 8,000, 4 times as much fuel, 4 times as much time, 4 times the expense. The fact that the Black Sea Fleet is hiding in Novorossiysk from an enemy that doesn't really have a navy, and the fact that the Tu-95 strategic bombers have to be moved now. First, they were moved from 400 kilometers to 1,000 kilometers away. Now they're being moved from 1,000 kilometers to 4,000 kilometers away. The greatest aerospace forces in the world. What a load of shit. To hide from a country that, until a bunch of other countries sent them some modern planes, they barely had what you would call an air force. Amazing. Amazing. That is not all. The Ukrainians are back in Kursk. Now, this is not about that so much. This is about a specific operation out in Tetkino, which we forget about. It's all the way out at the far western edge of the Kursk Oblast. And the Ukrainians just have a little 13 square kilometer pocket there, about 5 square miles. And it's on the right bank of the same river. Now, the same river, that probably sounds familiar to you because the same river runs all the way across the Kursk Oblast And back in August, when the Ukrainians first went in, they blew all the bridges, trapping, I want to say, 1,200 Russians south of the river. And then we watched over the next month as the Russians kept trying to build pontoon bridges, and every time they built one, the Ukrainians would just blow it up. Well, the Ukrainians have blown up the bridge over the River Seine again, just after the Russians rebuilt it. And they've moved troops in, according to Russian sources. We don't have confirmation on this from Kyiv. They've moved Ukrainian troops in south of Glashkovo again. So it looks like the Ukrainians are going for more of Kursk again. They're already in Belgorod. They've already got 40 square kilometers in Kursk down south of Sudza. And now it looks like they're pushing in south of Glashkovo. Amazing, right? Amazing. And very importantly, it is pinning 62,000 Russian troops in Kursk. They can't invade Sumy and open up another front. Not if they're pinned in Kursk, fighting the Ukrainians on the ground. It's preventing another scaled incursion into Ukraine. At what cost? I shudder to imagine. I shudder to imagine. But they're doing it. And saving Ukrainian lives, every one of them. Now, the Ukrainian Air Force struck a Russian UAV control point in Tetkino. Right there, you can see the blue area. That's the right bank of the same river, controlled by Ukraine in Russia. And then the Russians are on the other side of the river there. Now, this happened May 4th, Sunday. It was Sunday? Monday. Wait, I don't know what today is. Anyway, it happened on May 4th. Yeah, Cinco de Mayo is Monday. Okay, so Sunday. It happened on May 4th. And when I saw the story, I thought, oh, this is a repeat. Because according to Ukraine's general staff, up to 20 Russian servicemen were killed and key equipment was destroyed. And that's basically exactly the report we got about 10 days ago, when the Ukrainians hit the sugar mill in Tetkino, which was being used as a base of drone operators and training, as well as manufacture of drones. No, this is another story. They did it again. And this is important because Tetkino is a major reconnaissance hub from which the Russians fly reconnaissance drones into Ukraine, as well as attack drones. And so hitting these, 1/3 of all drones you see every night launched into Ukraine come from Kursk. So hitting these operations is critical for the safety of the people of Ukraine. So the Air Force successfully struck a control point for enemy UAVs units in the area of Tetkino settlement of Kursk Oblast. The brave pilots of the Air Force and all the defense forces of Ukraine continue to systematically reduce the aggressor state's ability to wage an aggressive war. This was a statement of the staff of the Ukrainian, oh God, I'm full of typos today, Armed Forces on Telegram. Look, if I knew anything about video editing, I would cut that part out, but I don't. And I don't have time for it. Okay. Now this pisses me off that I have to talk about this creep every single day, it seems. But we have to. Because right now, there's a whole bunch of analysts and social media bloggers who are saying that Trump is now all in on Ukraine, that when he was in an interview on Sunday and he said the words, when asked what concessions Russia must make, he said, Russia must give up the whole of Ukraine. And that sounds on the surface like he means Russia go home. That is not what it means. Come on, give me a fucking break. That is not what that means. He has the nerve to say that because Putin has so much respect for him, Putin won't take the whole of Ukraine. He'll be happy with the 18% he's got, and the war will stop there because of King Donald. The reason, of course, that the Kremlin has been unable to take the rest of Ukraine is because of the valorous service of the Ukrainian armed forces and the stalwart resistance of the Ukrainian people. It has absolutely nothing to do with this little tin god or his sandbox buddy over in the Kremlin. Nothing. Nothing. Russia has failed. And this fucking guy wants to turn that failure into a success. Now, I have to admit, I have been very confused about why Donald Trump is so insistent on raising oil production and bringing down oil prices, and why OPEC and OPEC Plus is going along with that, because we know that Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia is an acolyte of Vladimir Putin's. He looks up to him. We know that Trump is indebted to Putin. We know that these three, the leaders of the three largest oil producers in the world, are in cahoots. But it appears on the surface that Trump and Mohammed bin Salman have turned on Putin and are working to wreck his economy. And I've been very confused by that. I couldn't figure it out until I listened to this guy, Mr. Global. If you don't know Mr. Global, he is a recognized oil and gas industry expert, and his insights into the industry are invaluable in helping to inform my understanding of what's happening and therefore help inform yours. So he's a great guy to listen to. And I remember the first time I heard this guy, because what caught my attention was he said the same exact thing that I always say. And what everybody forgets. Such a simple thing, right? What is it that everybody forgets? Everybody forgets that back in 2018, 2019, Mohammed bin Salman and Putin conspired to bankrupt the American shale oil industry. Now, look, I'm no fan of fracking. It's a very dirty, messy business. But I'm also not a fan of damaging the American economy. So I understand that oil at less than $55 a barrel bankrupts the American shale oil industry. Hundreds of thousands of jobs, billions of dollars in revenue. That's not what I want for my country, right? Not right now when we're still in this fossil fuel dependent economy. And Mr. Global put it so simply. He said, do you think Vladimir Putin is worried about the price of oil wrecking his economy? He's not. And I thought, you're right. That's it. Now, whether or not he's right about that is a different question. But Mr. Global hit it on the head. Vladimir Putin believes he's winning. Vladimir Putin believes that with Donald Trump in the White House, that with Donald Trump, Mohammed bin Salman, and him now driving the price of oil down, that together they will bankrupt the American shale oil industry so that Russia and Saudi Arabia can claim back their market share in the world. And at the same time, Donald Trump's mindless acolytes will praise him for bringing down the price of gas, not realizing that they have put hundreds of thousands of their fellow Americans out of good paying jobs. Brilliant insight. And it made the whole picture so much clearer to me. And if that's still confusing to people, if we need to do a deep dive into that maybe on tonight's live, that would be great. Happy to do it. All right. Frederick Merz lost his first bid to become Chancellor of Germany today. And while there is not another vote scheduled for today, this is, as I understand it, when it comes to multi-party politics in Europe, this is a very common happening. He's building a coalition. As I understand it, he needs 316 votes out of the Bundestag. And in the first vote, he received 310. So it's likely that in tomorrow's vote, he will find those 6 votes. Or if not tomorrow, the next day. They can only do it 3 times. So some folks playing hardball to get what they want in the formation of the government might vote again tomorrow against him, only to come to an agreement on Thursday. So we'll see. But it's looking pretty good for Merz. 43-year-old TikToker was arrested out in the Pokrovsk area for using her TikTok to communicate Ukrainian troop positions to the Russians. It's unbelievable, right? Ukrainians marched quite proudly in the VE Day parade in London. And look at them going with the King's Guard right there. Big Ben in the background. A lot of people messaged me that it was a beautiful parade, but apparently everybody watched it on TV, and they didn't have any pictures to share with us. Now, can you imagine Trump or Putin, while visiting a foreign dignitary, taking the time for a photo op with Russian nationals who happen to be the cleaners in the parliament building you were meeting in? But that's what President Zelensky did, because he's a person, and he knows that they are too. And they are displaced by this war, and he wants them to come home, and they want to come home. Finally, this is what they're doing to keep the drones off. They're taking industrial wire, right? I mean, it's like an Ent tank. It's like a Lord of the Rings. I don't know what the porcupine tank. So wire to try to catch the drones before they can impact the vehicle. No one thinks this is going to work. It just destroys your gas mileage. That's it for me. You know where to find me. I'll see you on the live tonight. Thanks, everybody.